The moving box tore as I lifted it, spilling 20 years of my daughter's childhood across the hardwood floor, like scattered memories refusing to stay buried. I was helping Emma pack for college when it happened, when the past I thought I had carefully locked away came tumbling out in a cascade of art projects, school reports, and there at the very bottom, a cream-coloured envelope with a name written across it in handwriting that made my hands freeze mid-reach. Michael. The August heat pressed against the windows of Emma's childhood bedroom, but suddenly I felt cold, transported back to a different summer, a different version of myself who had been young and scared and desperately in love with a boy who didn't know he was about to become a father. Emma was downstairs, arguing with her boyfriend about which books she absolutely needed to take to college, her voice carrying up through the floorboards with the easy confidence of someone who had never doubted her place in the world. I picked up the envelope with trembling fingers, recognizing immediately the careful script of my 19-year-old self. The paper was yellow with age, the edges soft from years of being moved from hiding place to hiding place. The letter had been sealed, then carefully opened, then sealed again so many times that the flap barely held. I could see the ghost of tear stains on the envelope, could remember the night I had written it, sitting cross-legged on my narrow dorm room bed while my roommate slept, the pregnancy test hidden in my desk drawer like evidence of a crime I hadn't meant to commit. Emma's laughter drifted up from downstairs, bright and carefree, and I wondered how different her life might have been if I had found the courage to send this letter. She believed her father was someone I had dated briefly in college, someone who had moved away before she was born. It wasn't entirely a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. I sank onto Emma's bed, surrounded by the remnants of her childhood, her swimming trophies, her debate team ribbons, her art supplies scattered like rainbow confetti across the carpet. In her graduation photos, I could see echoes of Michael in the curve of her smile, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking. For 20 years, I had looked at my daughter and seen pieces of the boy I had loved and lost, and every day it had been like carrying a secret that grew heavier with time. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope and unfolded the letter, the paper crackling softly like autumn leaves. The date at the top read September 23rd, 2003. Exactly 9 weeks after the night that had changed everything. Exactly 1 week after I had stared at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. Dear Michael, I've started this letter 47 times, and I'm not sure this version will be any easier to read than the others, but I have to try. There's something I need to tell you, something that happened after you left for Stanford. Something that changes everything and nothing all at once. I'm pregnant. I know. Those words probably feel like a punch to the stomach, because that's exactly how they felt when I first said them out loud to my reflection in the bathroom mirror 3 days ago. I know you're probably reading this and thinking about all the dreams you have for college, all the plans we made separately after graduation, all the reasons we agreed that a long-distance relationship wouldn't work. I want you to know that I haven't made any decisions yet. I'm writing this letter in my dorm room at 2 a.m. because I can't sleep, because my mind keeps spinning through all the possibilities and none of them feel real yet. Part of me keeps thinking I'll wake up tomorrow and this will all have been a strange dream. But it's not a dream, and I need you to know that whatever happens next, I don't regret that night. I know we were careful most of the time. But that last week before graduation, when we both knew you were leaving and I was staying here for college, when everything felt desperate and final, I don't regret choosing to be close to you one more time. I don't regret falling asleep in your arms in the back of your car after prom, or the way you whispered that you loved me while the sunrise painted everything gold around us. I keep thinking about the conversation we had graduation night, when you said you could see yourself having kids someday, but not until you were 30, not until you had traveled and established your career and figured out who you were outside of this small town. I keep thinking about how your face lit up when you talked about Stanford, about studying environmental science, about maybe working for the National Park Service someday. And then I think about the way you used to talk about your own father, how he had dreams of becoming a teacher but got married at 20 and spent the rest of his life working construction jobs he hated to support his family. How you swore you would never let yourself get trapped the way he did, never let obligations steal your dreams before you had a chance to chase them. I don't want to be the reason your dreams get smaller. I don't want you to look back in 20 years and resent me for changing the trajectory of your life when you were barely old enough to vote. I don't want you to give up Stanford and move back here and marry me because it's the right thing to do, because I know you well enough to know that's exactly what you would try to do if I told you about this. But I also know you well enough to know that you would be a wonderful father, even if the timing is all wrong. I know you would figure out how to love this baby fiercely while still feeling trapped by the circumstances that created it. So I'm making the choice for both of us. I'm deciding not to send this letter, not to call you, not to pull you back into a situation that would derail everything you've worked so hard for. I'm deciding to handle this on my own, whatever handling it ends up meaning. What I want you to know, what I need you to know, is that whatever I decide, it won't be because I don't think you would be a good father. It won't be because I don't love you, or because what we had together wasn't real and important, and worth everything it cost us to say goodbye. If I don't tell you about this, it will be because I love you enough to let you become the person you're meant to be, on your own timeline. I hope you're happy at Stanford. I hope you're making friends and learning things that fascinate you, and discovering parts of yourself you never knew existed. I hope you think of our time together with the same bittersweet fondness that I do, as something beautiful that existed in its own perfect moment before real life pulled us in different directions. I hope someday, years from now, when we're both the people we were meant to become, we might run into each other somewhere unexpected. Maybe I'll be pushing a stroller, or maybe I'll be alone, but either way, I hope I'll be someone you can be proud of knowing. I will always love you, Michael. Take care of yourself. Sarah, P.S. If this baby exists, if I choose to bring this pregnancy to term, I promise I will love it enough for both of us. I promise I will tell it that its father was a good person who had dreams worth chasing. I promise I will never let it feel like a mistake or an accident or anything less than wanted. I folded the letter carefully, my vision blurred with tears that had been 20 years in the making. Emma's footsteps were coming up the stairs, her voice calling out something about needing help, deciding which sweaters to pack for her first semester at Berkeley, the same school where she would be studying environmental science, following a passion she claimed came from nowhere. "Mum?" Emma appeared in the doorway, her arms full of textbooks, her face flushed with excitement. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I looked at my daughter, this brilliant, confident, kind-hearted young woman who'd been the best decision I had ever made, even when I didn't know I was making it. She had Michael's eyes, the same deep brown that had always reminded me of coffee and chocolate, and all the warm things that made you feel safe. She had his passion for the natural world, his quiet determination. "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart," I said, slipping the letter into my pocket. "I was just remembering when you were little. Time goes so fast." That night, after Emma had gone out with friends, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea and read the letter again. Then I did something I had never had the courage to do before. I opened my laptop and searched for Michael's name. He wasn't hard to find. Dr. Michael Chen, senior research scientist at Yellowstone National Park, specializing in climate change impacts on forest ecosystems. His bio mentioned his PhD from Stanford, his groundbreaking research on wildfire prevention, his passionate advocacy for environmental education. There were photos of him leading groups of school children on nature walks, accepting awards for his conservation work. He had gotten to live his dreams. He had become exactly the person he had hoped to become at 18. And I felt a deep satisfaction knowing that my silence had helped make that possible. But as I scrolled through his website, I found something that made my breath catch. A blog post titled "The Paths Not Taken." In it, he wrote about turning 40, about reflecting on the choices that had shaped his life, about wondering sometimes about the people he had left behind when he moved to California for college. He mentioned that he had never married, had never had children, and while he loved his work, he sometimes wondered what it would have been like to have a family. "I think about the girl I loved in high school sometimes," he had written. Sarah Mitchell, who had the kindest eyes and the sharpest mind of anyone I've ever known. "I think about how we promised to stay in touch when I left for Stanford, and how life got in the way of that promise. But if she's out there, if she ever reads this, I want her to know that she was important, that our time together shaped me in ways I'm still discovering." I closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen for a long time, thinking about parallel lives and roads not taken, and the weight of secrets carried too long. In a few days, I would drive Emma to Berkeley, would help her move into her dorm room, would watch her begin the same journey her father had taken 20 years ago. The next morning, I found Emma in the garden, picking tomatoes. She looked so much like Michael in that moment that I felt the words rising in my throat before I could stop them. "Emma," I said, settling onto the garden bench, "there's something I need to tell you about your father. Your biological father." She looked up, curiosity replacing surprise in her expression. "What about him?" I took a deep breath and told her everything. About Michael, about the letter I had never sent, about the choice I had made to raise her alone rather than derail his dreams. I told her about his work at Yellowstone, about the person he had become, about the blog post that had made me realize 20 years of silence might have been 20 years too long. When I finished, Emma was quiet for a long moment. "Do you think he would have wanted to know?" she asked finally. "About me?" "I think he would have tried to do the right thing," I said. And I was 19 and terrified that the right thing would have ruined his life. But what if the right thing would have been for him to know he had a daughter who loves the environment just like he does? Emma asked. What if the right thing would have been for me to grow up knowing my father? Emma stood up, brushing dirt off her hands. "I want to meet him." "Emma, I'm going to Berkeley, Mom. I'm going to be in California studying environmental science just like he did. Maybe it's time to stop letting fear make decisions for all of us." That evening, I sat down with my laptop and began typing an email to Dr. Michael Chen. "Michael, this is Sarah Mitchell. Sarah Peterson now. I hope you remember me. I know it's been 20 years, and I know this email might come as a shock, but I have something to tell you that I should have told you a long time ago. I have a daughter. Her name is Emma. She's 20 years old, and she's yours. I'm sorry for keeping this from you for so long. She's studying environmental science at Berkeley, and she has your eyes and your passion for the natural world. If you want to meet her, please let me know. Sarah." I stared at the email for an hour before I found the courage to hit send. 3 days later, as we loaded Emma's belongings into the car for the drive to Berkeley, my phone buzzed with a response. Michael had written back immediately, asking if he could call, asking if Emma wanted to meet him, asking if it would be okay if he drove down from Yellowstone to see her before classes started. Emma read the email over my shoulder and smiled. The same smile I remembered from Michael at 18, full of wonder and possibility and hope. "Yes," she said simply. "Tell him yes." And finally, after 20 years of silence, I did. Some letters are never sent because the timing is wrong. Some are never sent because the truth feels too dangerous to speak aloud. But sometimes, the most important letters aren't the ones we write. They're the conversations we finally find the courage to have when we realize that love is always worth the risk of honesty, no matter how long we've been afraid to try.